Distance education, a brief introduction. The objectives of this presentation are to give you a sense of how distance education is defined. Additionally, we'll take a look at some of the trends in distance ed. The data that's in this presentation comes from the Sloan C Foundation 2012 Distance Education Report. Let's start by exploring the definitions of distance education. I say definitions because the meanings are slightly different depending on who you're listening to. DE means different things to different institutions and agencies. Your college will likely have its own definition of distance education, and you should know what that is. The U.S. Department of Education has recently taken an interest in distance education because they're concerned about private for-profit colleges misleading students by inflating tuition and causing defaulted student loans, as well as being concerned that students are participating in fraudulent use of financial aid. As the feds follow the money, they've developed some strict regulations that all Title IV institutions, which are those receiving federal funds, must follow or risk losing or paying back huge sums of money. How does this impact the definition of distance education? Well, the feds have two terms: distance education and correspondence education. You're probably wondering how this affects you. Your college is private, but quite reputable and not for profit. Well, we're all caught in this net, unfortunately, and so the definition becomes very specific. If your school has students who receive financial aid, this is important. There's more than just the definition that separates distance education from correspondence education. There's also the eligibility for students to receive financial aid. If your course is correspondence, your school is not allowed to have students using financial aid to pay for the course, and your school can't call a correspondence course a distance education course either. So what is the difference? Well, distance education has something called regular and substantive teacher-to-student interaction, which includes engagement in the content of the course. Remember, that's teacher-to-student interaction. It also has opportunities for student-to-student interaction, and that's important for the community that's built in your online class. Students also move through material together. It's usually not self-paced. Correspondence education, on the other hand, has very little teacher-to-student interaction. It's got very little or no student-to-student interaction. As a matter of fact, no interaction at all. And interaction is usually done via email or US mail. This has implications, as you might guess, for how many students you're teaching at one time, and thereby has some bearing on how your college sets class size and how many classes one instructor can teach at the same time. By the way, all class content that's online has to be accessible to blind and hearing impaired students, which we'll discuss in later units, but it is a federal regulation that's tied both to accreditation and to financial aid funding, so I thought I'd mention it here. Oh, there's the self-paced content and correspondence education. So what about different types of DE? As we struggle to create online opportunities for students as individual colleges, we bump up against the issue of what's a hybrid class. The federal regs do not define hybrid classes at all. We refer to hybrid classes as a class that meets partially at a distance and partially face-to-face on campus. There's no defined proportion for what makes a class a hybrid, and you'll find individual colleges have their own distinct definitions. People sometimes think that a hybrid is when any class is 50% at a distance. Both hybrid and fully online courses are considered as distance education by the U.S. Department of Ed, no matter what percentage is online. There are two more types of distance education that you might be interested in knowing about. You may have heard about them. They are flipped and blended. Flipped usually refers to a class where much of the content, lectures, video, reading, tutorials, and so forth, take place online in a course management system like Blackboard. But the class meets as a face-to-face class, and no face-to-face time is replaced by distance ed. This leaves class time for more one-on-one assistance time with the students and the teacher, involving components of the course that students may need help with, or where presentations and some group activities are needed. Blended learning is when there's a good deal of content online for students, but it might not be divided the same way as it would be for a flipped course. Blended is used a lot in the K-12 arena. The difference between synchronous and asynchronous distance ed bears a little discussion too. When classes meet like this, one-on-one in a video conferencing setting, all at the same time, it's considered synchronous. These classes appear in course schedules with specific meeting days and times, and students must fit them into their class schedules. Asynchronous, on the other hand, are courses that meet online and use methods of communication and interaction that allow students to come in and participate whenever they can. That doesn't mean they're self-paced. You still would have deadlines and content becomes available on a schedule. But it does mean that students do not expect to be required to meet at a set day, place, or time. This is very important for you to consider as you design your own courses. Regular discussions and blog postings are part of an asynchronous activity in a course. This is e-conferencing or web conferencing. At @ONE, we have the use of an e-conferencing tool, Blackboard Collaborate, via our own CC Confer portal. We do real-time meetings with our students with this. We can archive these meetings and make them optional to attend at specific time for all students. We can also do something called a virtual hybrid, where meetings are set in the class schedule for a specific day and time, but the students meet online. I encourage you to try to use e-conferencing for teaching and for office hours if you have access to a system like this. There are some free ones. There are some issues though. If your class is advertised as synchronously fully online, then these kinds of meetings, asynchronously, fully online, then these kinds of meetings cannot be mandatory. You can archive them though and have students watch them as a mandatory activity. Whoops, now they're synchronous activities. You get it? Some newer methods for asynchronous activities in online courses are small group visual meeting spaces like Zoom and Hangouts. These are free web conferencing tools. Zoom is pretty new but works fairly well. Hangouts is well developed with a chat feature and other options. Both are limited to the number of people who can be on a call at one time. Skype is also another synchronous tool that you can use for assisting students in any kind of online class. I think it's great for office hour type meetings, but it's usually used in one-on-one situations. Both of these are free. What this class prepares you for is for teaching fully online. However, you can use the strategies you'll learn in this class to teach hybrid courses as well, and you'll really see the benefit of blended and flipped usages too. You've probably heard about MOOCs. They're mass open online courses, and there are two types: XMOOCs, which are mainly machine graded and instructor delivered and led, and CMOOCs, which take a constructivist approach, where students may participate together but move through courses according to their individual needs. There are companies, both profit and nonprofit, participating in the development of MOOCs that have anywhere from hundreds to thousands of enrolled students across the globe. The hallmark of a MOOC is that there are sometimes thousands of students in them. Most are now open and free, and anyone can enroll in them. The original idea is to provide quality lectures and content to anyone, anywhere. That idea has been changing rapidly, and the companies who were project-based out of universities and nonprofit settings are trying to achieve some form of financial sustainability now. This is something to really watch as it develops. You should be thinking about how you might use this, or how your college might use this style of distance ed. Here are some stats that you might want to know about. We're not sure what roles these courses will play in our future, but they definitely will be used by educational institutions in a variety of ways. Most MOOCs are developed by universities using their best professors and technology teams. They started out with topics in technology-related subjects, and gradually the topics changed to a wide variety of things that people wanted to teach, outside of the curricular constraints, by the way, of their institution. There are also courses that can be used for credit as standard courses within a curricular pattern. However, it's up to the credit-granting institution to accept credit for these courses. Most courses are not suitable for beginning college students. However, lower division courses have been developed, and more are in the planning stages. It's likely that these courses will be used not only for enrichment and credit, but as material for face-to-face courses as well. In the flipped classroom setting, teachers put material online that students can manage individually pardon me, and meet with their students to cover material that the students need more assistance with. MOOCs will likely also fill the flipped classroom need. Moving on to other matters, here are some national statistics that were reported by the Sloan C Consortium in April of 2012. Over 6.7 million students were taking at least one online course during the fall 2011 term, an increase of 570,000 students over the previous year. 32% of higher education students now take at least one course online. You can see that the popularity of distance education has skyrocketed over the last decade. With the proliferation of handheld mobile devices, access has become very fluid. This slide touches on the issues of success and retention in online courses. Let's start with these numbers. Nationally, 77% of academic leaders rate the learning outcomes in online education as the same or superior to those in face-to-face. The proportion of chief academic leaders say that online learning is critical to the long-term strategy, and that's at a new high of 69.1%. A majority of chief academic officers at all types of institution continue to believe that lower retention rates for online courses are a barrier to the widespread adoption of online education. This is a really interesting finding because it seems to be paradoxical that people want to use them and think that their outcomes are better, but there's no proof with the success rates being lower. So some things to note about this data from the California community colleges is that it's generally success and retention rates are lower online than face-to-face. This slide shows the data from 2010, and it shows that online success was a full 10 percentage point lower than face-to-face, with online at 57% and face-to-face at 67%. This data from community colleges shows a trend that's duplicated across the country and across levels of study. We have success and retention data to 2010 shown here. However, it hasn't changed much since then. Lower retention rates by about 5 to 10% from face-to-face classes, which are not shown here, and significantly lower success rates, are hallmarks of online programs. Success is measured by how many students complete with a grade of C or better, by the way. There are many reasons that success and retention is lower for DE. One main one is that students are not properly prepared to succeed in online classes, and they expect them to be easier than face-to-face. The fact that they are not scheduled into a student's day like the face-to-face class often causes the students to let the work slip and they get behind. Other reasons include time issues for working adults and people with children, difficulty reading material, and or not being self-directed learners. Other reasons are disorganized courses and lack of instructor participation. The value of online course offerings is definitely access-based. Most colleges report that students who take their online courses are also enrolled in their face-to-face courses and take online for the convenience of scheduling. So what does this stuff mean to you? It's important to understand who your students are and why they are taking your class, so ask them. Survey your course in the very beginning to know what you will have to do to keep them engaged. Many students in recent years seem to take courses to establish units only and aren't interested in what they're trying to learn in those classes that they enroll in. Really focusing on student success from the first minute you start to design your class is critical to the success that your students will have. Knowing who they are and why they are in your class is also really important to understand, especially since these students don't often care about what you're trying to teach them. So, survey your students, be sure that you're interacting with them and that they're interacting with each other. One young woman who took all classes for her bachelor's degree as online courses said, "I don't have college friends." Think about that. When you're designing your courses, make sure there are opportunities for students to discuss and work together, as well as opportunities for you to participate in conversations with them. Imagine what it would be like to have no college friends. Think about that one long and hard. Try to put that kind of activity into your online courses. Lastly, review your course often. It takes at least 3 semesters for a class to start to function smoothly. You'll revise a lot during that time. But don't ever stop looking for innovation. The technologies that were not available in 2002 make teaching online much easier, and hopefully we'll see them continue to improve. We'll discuss more the issues of success and retention as we go forward, because it's something that you have to pay attention to in everything that you do. Good luck in your class. Good luck with your studying how to teach online, and good luck with implementing what you learn.